Awesome.
Well, we are here again as we should be on Thursday with co-host Bradford Ferguson of Rebellionaire and Bradford. Crazy times we're in. Boy, oh boy, the stock just doesn't want to go up. It just wants to go down. We're talking about Tesla, of course. But today was another day where the stock went down more than anybody else in percentage. You have some theories on that. I'd love to have you share. I've given all my theories, so I'd love to have one more to throw in the pot.
So I did a little poll, and I know polls are unscientific. And what I asked is, are you selling Tesla stock and buying crypto? And a lot of people that follow me are Teslaonaires and all in on Tesla, and 12% said yes. So
12%.
yeah, maybe a chunk of them were crypto bros who don't own Tesla, kind of lying, but
Right, right, right.
uh, that surprised me how high that was, because I would have thought it would have been like under 10%.
Wow.
So you might have people kind of getting impatient on Tesla stock because it's just drifting down, seems like. Also Nvidia stock has done really well.
Right.
Um, so people might be buying Nvidia. Some folks admitted to that in the comments.
I see.
Um, so I think part of the reason it's going down is for that reason. Um, I know the Hertz news wasn't that great, and we'll get into that.
Right, right,
Um,
right.
but those are some little off the wall thoughts on the stock today.
Well, and Microsoft passed Apple in market cap today, so that was interesting. So maybe there's a few folks because a lot of people that are in Tesla are old Apple winners. They won in Apple and now they're winning in Tesla.
Yeah.
So they might be looking at Microsoft and going, well, maybe that's another horse that could take a few dollars off trim a little my winnings and put them in Microsoft.
Mhm. So tell me, Randy, are you gonna get the Vision Pro from Apple?
I
It
think
might be a really awesome screen for productivity and
I,
entertainment. It's a 85-inch screen, so to speak, that you can travel with.
right, right. I was tempted when I saw the first release, and we even talked about buying two of them. And I think I'm going to do what I commonly do now. I think I'm going to give it a couple of months and get some consumer reporting back on it,
Mhm.
and even maybe personal friends that might do it, like you. Right? You're going to buy one, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll be able to hear from you whether or not it's worth it.
So what I'm gonna try is I was thinking Tesla had this video about, and we're going off script a little bit here, but
Yeah, yeah, it's
they had
fine.
this video about how much painstaking engineering they put into their sound system.
Yeah,
And I realized, like, one of the best sound systems in the world is in the Tesla.
yeah.
But you can't just like throw a big screen TV into your Tesla. Like the screen would be too close. It just wouldn't work.
Right.
And it'd be too heavy. But I tried it recently with a Meta VR goggles, and it was really, really good. So
Oh man.
I'm anxious to try it with even better VR goggles.
All right. Well, I'll be waiting for that report. That's great. I love it. Well, that could either be the savior of Apple, not like they need saving, but
No.
or it could be kind of a drag if they that's a pretty high price tag even for people that have
Yeah,
the
I think maybe it'll be a stepping stone. I think it'll be hard for most people, but like you're gonna have a really good computer and like one of the nicest screens you could own in one package.
right, right, right. That's
But
right.
people may not make that logical leap. But let's move on. I apologize.
Okay, no, not at all. Okay. Well, so today, as you pointed out, instead of fake news, we did have a bit of difficult news for Tesla today. The news that we've had for the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks has almost been 100% fake news, but there's reality here. Hertz is decreasing the size of its BEV fleet and is replacing it with ICE cars. And they cited the expense of the repairs and lack of demand. Now, I wasn't shocked by the lack of demand piece because you can't just jump into a Tesla and just drive away. I'd suspect that some who might have been interested enough to order it might have even turned around and come back and said, I just can't handle the complexity from ground zero. And that could have been an issue for them. Jeff Lutz comes back and says, once you properly parse the headlines, Hertz bought too many EVs, but they said the reality of the Teslas being the best-selling cars will at some point render them to being the best rental car. We're just early, is the quote from Hertz. Pretty and then a pretty fair assessment on their part, says Jeff. So what did you think about all of this thing with Hertz?
I think Hertz has made two very large mistakes. One is when someone rents a Tesla, they give people no education on charging. We should assume that charging is pretty simple, but people don't know about, finding them on the screen. There have been people who have called Hertz after they've run out of or run low on charge, and they can't figure out how to charge it. Even at a supercharger, they don't know how to do it. So there's zero education that's happening with Hertz. They're not like bothering to leave a card in the car to tell you, okay, here's how you use the screen, here's how you charge it. That would be really easy, a two-sided card. I know it's paper and wasteful, but like it's a good sized rental. So there's no education happening there, and I think that's a huge mistake and a huge missed opportunity. Um, the other piece is that they did order 50 to 100,000 right away. So basically, Hertz took this huge amount of supply to their fleet and oversupplied their fleet with Teslas. And so, they found that the demand for Teslas isn't quite there yet.
Right.
But they seem sanguine about Teslas for the future. So I think those were like the two big mistakes.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, they got unlucky in terms of the timing of the purchase, so that when they went to resell them, they found that they were taking a larger loss than well, in fact, they intend to make money actually on the resell of their vehicles. And in this case, they couldn't because they went from this massive shortage of Teslas that
Mhm.
created a very, very high price point when they were buying in. And now they're selling them in a time when we're back to normal. So that was just an unlucky situation. But I'm glad to hear that they're think that they were just early. I think that they're right, and we'll see what happens downstream. Well, the second thing was Sawyer Merritt. It reports it this way. He says Reuters is reporting that Tesla will suspend most car production at Giga Berlin from January 29th to February 11th. That's 2 weeks. Citing a lack of components due to shifts in transport routes because of attacks on vessels in the Red Sea. I don't see this as a huge setback. That's Germany. It's 2 weeks. It's 10,000 cars. They do about 20,000 cars a month. So we're looking at 10,000 cars. If they really are needing them, I'm sure they could make that up. What do you think?
Yeah, that time frame is about the extra time frame it takes to go around Africa, as I understand. I'm
Yeah.
guessing it's at least 10 days that it adds to the trip.
I think it's 14.
Okay, so essentially that jives with the downtime for Tesla. The U.S. and others need to do something about the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. I think they will. Um, the U.S. military has built up a big navy for commerce, for world global commerce, and that's what it's for. And you have people threatening that with launching missiles at um, uh, countries that are allied with Israel or the U.S. Um, and that and the ships don't want to take that risk, so they need to route around Africa for now, and that's making the voyage longer and driving up costs too.
Yeah, I would imagine that other people will be in the same boat, so to speak. Anyway, but again, I think it's a big nothing burger because unless it continues, but I think Tesla will make the adjustments as they have in the past. If in fact it was really interfering with cars that they know they could move right off if they see that it's a real significant issue, they'll just start flying stuff or do whatever they have to do. They're very nimble that way. That's one of the things I appreciate about the company is how nimble they are. Well, then
Yeah,
Tesla,
their supply chain team is very strong. So
very strong. I think they're rate. So sorry. I think they're ranked 15th in the world in terms of their supply chain in independent rankings. They're
well,
15th in the world in terms of the quality of their supply chain.
mhm.
So then they also announced a pay increase for all factory workers today. Some people seem to think that that would be a reason to sell. I kind of expected it for a couple of reasons. Number one, we have the UAW just uh, concluding their talks with the other three. So there would be a normal inclination to do a little bit of work to maintain your own workers if you thought there was any chance they might move on, and maybe to create a little buffer against UAW coming into your place. But also, we have 4% inflation in payroll right now anyway. So most companies, I think, would be giving a 4% bump no matter what, maybe more than a 4% bump. So did you think this would be a good reason to sell?
No, no. You need to you want to keep the people that have experience. You want to keep your good workers, and you know, this is something that you had to deal with as a business owner, and that I deal with currently. And we at Halter Ferguson Financial, we compensate people well, and we do it on purpose because we realize that like retraining people, like that's a huge headache and causes a big decline in productivity because it's not just getting that person on board; it's taking away from someone else who's training them.
Yeah.
So it's very expensive to train workers, and you want to pay people sufficiently to keep them in the role.
Yep, absolutely right. That's what I did too. Of course, I had a lot of people that were close to minimum wage, but I always started people well above minimum wage, and I tried to make sure I was above market for my neighborhood because
Yeah.
same reasons. And I didn't lose people. I had really, really good retention of my
Yeah.
yeah.
And the other part is like financial analysts should expect that costs are going up every year. So um, it shouldn't be a surprise to any financial analyst.
Yeah, pretty soon it may not matter at all because it will be all robots anyway. So anyway, so
That's right.
Gary Black says by the way, Gary Black, if you want to find him on X, it's Gary Black 00, and that's OO, but not anyway. I think I got it. Okay, there are three numbers that matter when Tesla reports fourth quarter earnings on 124. And here are the Wall Street consensus estimates. So he says the number one thing that's going to matter is the adjusted EPS, fourth quarter adjusted EPS. He's saying that the 73-cent estimate, which is down 39% year over year, I guess that's the
Mm.
estimate. Fourth quarter auto gross margin, the street is thinking it's going to be 17 versus 16.3 in the third quarter, and full year 24 delivery estimates coming in at 2.195. Let's call it 2.2, which is only up 21% year over year. I agree with them 100%. I actually think this is what's going on with the stock. I think that the drip of the press just beating and beating and beating and beating. At a certain point, you just get exhausted from all the negative news. I think that's a big piece of it, but I also think everybody is worried for a double whammy coming up on the 24th that we have the gross margins down on cars, and we have a low number for the projection of 24. So what do you think?
I I think it's going to be below 2.3 as far as what they do, and definitely below like 2.35. I came out this past summer and I said that Gordon Johnson was right about one thing, is that 2024 would be a gap year and Tesla would struggle to grow more than 30%. And I just had a problem seeing where they're going to get the growth from. In Texas, they've held steady at like 3,500 cars a week, or they had for a long time. And we saw Berlin step back in number of shifts. So they stepped back, and they might have hit 5,000 a week briefly, but they stepped back in shifts and got to like a 4,000 a week steady state. So I'm not surprised by this, and we're also Matt's run the numbers on their earnings for fourth quarter, and we're below where Wall Street is, um, both with the earnings and the auto gross margins. Hopefully this will be the bottom. And we had the Highland launch. I came out Tuesday morning, 8 a.m., saying that they were going to switch over to the upgraded Model 3. I guess Elon doesn't call it that. We
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
call
yeah.
it Highland.
Island,
Highland apparently doesn't exist, but let's
right?
call it the upgraded Model 3. I said that they were going to begin to cut over and make those at Fremont this week. I've been sitting on this for a bit. And that night, Tesla came out with the announcement and the video for the upgraded Model 3. I think that's going to be big for Tesla. It's going to allow them to, I think, hold prices more firm than they would otherwise be able to with the the loss of the $7,500 tax credit on the car. But one interesting thing we're seeing on that is Tesla is able to roll a $7,500 credit into a lease.
Peace. Yeah, yeah.
So we might see a big change in percentage of people leasing the car if they become aware of this. But like the lease rate is pretty low. I think is like 329 a month or lower, which is
Yes, yes.
that's very low for right now. And to get into the upgraded Model 3 with that, um, it's just a big difference. And you look at a BMW, the back seat for a BMW, and maybe none of us ever sit in the back seat of our Tesla, but it's in the Tesla, you got the video screen, and it's just a very clean look. And the BMW's got that hump for the
Uh,
transmission, the shaft to go from the front to the rear. It's got that big hump on the floor, and then it's got these big, ugly looking vents. Um, and the Tesla's going to have the perforated seats. I think it's just going to perceptions will shift with the Model 3.
I can't say it any more strongly at this point that the advertising needs to start. They have a value proposition now that is so much better than their equivalent
Mm,
parts. They're not equivalent in any way. You
yeah,
can say that the size of them is equivalent. You can say that the beauty of them is equivalent, or whatever you might think about in terms of equivalent cars, but in terms of their performance, in terms of their cost of ownership, in terms of all the stuff that you get on the app, in terms of the
mm,
entertainment center. I mean, let's face it, some of the stuff on the entertainment center is worth the price of admission. I mean, it's just, and that's just the beginning of all the things that you get with the Tesla that aren't in the equivalent cars. The list I could go on probably for 15 minutes. We got to get the word out.
yeah. A Tesla Model 3 priced the same or lower as a BMW 3 or a Mercedes C or an Audi A4. The the Beamer, the Benz, and the Audi, they should not sell any cars.
None. Yeah,
It
none.
it
Yeah.
should not happen. Unless like someone just cannot charge at home or whatever. Like they should not sell any more cars, but it's still happening. So there's a
Yes.
gap. And this this upgraded Model 3 launch was very soft. I don't know if you had Jeff Lutz on yet, but um, it it was a midnight tweet from Tesla. Elon comment on it on a couple days later,
Yeah.
and I think we might have gotten a tweet from the head of IR Tesla, Martin Viecha. Yeah, they I expect Tesla, like I think they should be touting all the changes that the Model 3 has, and the world shouldn't find out about it. I enjoy Monroe Associates, but they shouldn't find out about it from Monroe. They should find out about it from Tesla.
My kids are not going to find out about it from Monroe.
Yeah,
I have kids from 28 to 47. They all can afford Teslas. None of them are driving Teslas. They are not going to find out about it from anything that we're looking at in the community. The only way they're
Yeah.
going to find out about it is from a friend, or but they don't know. They may find out from me, but they wouldn't know. So it's time. We've got price equivalence. We've got better value than anything out there, but nobody knows it. It's just at this point, nobody knows it. And I think you could be wrong about your estimates in the 2.2, 2.35, whatever range for 2024, but it's going to take getting the word to middle America. I'm convinced the middle America needs to get the word because they don't know. They just don't know.
Yeah, the Teslas are not just for rich people. They're equivalent on total cost of ownership to a Toyota Corolla versus the Model 3, which is a shocker. I think that the Corolla is slightly cheaper, but like middle America isn't all driving around a Corolla. They're driving around better and more expensive than that.
Right.
And it's similar with Model Y. And the truth is, like, people want to wait till the end of their lease, or they want to wait to certain mileage. The truth of it is, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, is like the sooner you switch, the sooner you save, and the sooner your family's safer, and the sooner you're going to have more fun in your car.
Absolutely. All those things are true. So in the meantime, you mentioned Audi and Mercedes and all these other guys, but there's one company in particular that I'm starting to get worried about. Now I'm actually slightly more worried about GM and Ford than I am about this company you're going to mention. But because I think GM and Ford may be in real big trouble. I think layoffs are coming in 2024. But what do you have another company in mind that you think kind of showed their bad situation even before layoffs? Actually, I think
there's an account on Twitter called AJ, and the handle is ALOJOH. And he highlighted the lack of reporting from Volkswagen. They're stepping way back in how they're reporting on their quarterly deliveries. So they're becoming much more vague. And the reason is because they're shrinking. So they're actually doing a good thing by shrinking. They need to shrink. I think they understand a good amount of the challenge, but the other issue with Volkswagen that's concerning is they just promised that by the end of the decade, so 2029 is the earliest that the end of the decade would be, they would come out with a 25,000 euro compact EV, which Tesla is probably going to do in 2026. So Volkswagen is proud to commit to doing it 3 years later than Tesla. I wouldn't want to be a shareholder, not investment advice. I wouldn't want to be an employee at Volkswagen. It's a tough situation to manage, and they're managing a decline and shrinking of their business.
Yeah, absolutely right. So you don't think that the $25,000 BE compact from Tesla, the Gen 3 car, will be out until 2026?
I'd say like that's the realistic time. Yeah.
Wow, you and I are way off on that one. I got them ramping that one the end of this year, so we'll see what happens. So what do you think they're going to make in Austin if they're saying that they're getting ready now for a Gen 3 vehicle? You think that the Austin vehicle will not be out for another 2 years?
Yeah, I'd say the earliest it could be is like late 2025.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna keep a record of that.
See. We'll see.
You had a third piece of news. I'm forgetting what it was that you wanted to share before we get into the general stuff, the general economy and the stock market and whatnot.
I'll check it out. Let's get to the other items.
All right. Okay. So the Kobesi letter, I finally found out how to pronounce that. It's spelled KOBEISSI, the Kobesi letter. While CPI inflation is at 3.4%, inflation is much higher in many of the basic necessities. So we had, of course, the CPI come out today. The market seems to treat it as a nothing burger. At the end of the day, it was flat from where it started, even though it did a lot of this. The bond market yields were up a little, but they are coming back down in the pre-market. So it's really kind of a nothing burger today. But here were the 7 categories that he mentioned. Car insurance up 20%. Transportation overall inflation, which must not include that because car insurance, I think, is under services. So transportation inflation at 10%, car inflation at 7.1, rent inflation at 6.5, homeowner inflation at 6.3, hospital service inflation at 5.5, and food away from home at 5.2. Almost all of those, with the exception of food away from home, in my analysis, my reporting, all of them are either transitory or already, there's plenty of evidence that they're headed south. He doesn't mention that in his letter, which is common. I love his reporting, this is not his analysis. So, what did you think about the inflation numbers today? Do you think it affects the decision that whether the Fed will come down a quarter in March? Do you think anything changed today?
I don't think it gave the Fed extra motivation to cut early. Yeah, you're right. This account tends to be a little negative, and I'll say something very negative. Yesterday I made a video with Meyer Thacker, and that's going to be coming out on the Rebellionaire channel. And we talk about recession and all the indicators that we're likely heading toward recession. I don't know if I'm going to adjust my investments because of this information, but I didn't think this report was especially encouraging. The Fed is aware, I believe, of trueflation. I think you're kind of alluding to that inflation is lower than what this report talked about. The Fed is aware of that, and we'll see what happens with their rate decreases. But I think like the stage has already been set, and yeah, Meyer Thacker made a really compelling case on my channel.
So I don't know if you know, I don't know if we talked about this last week, but I have slipped into the 50% probability of recession third quarter.
Whoa. Are you joking?
No, I'm not joking at all.
Wow.
Yeah, so no,
all right. Well, you have to watch it. It's a long one, but we go through a lot of very compelling charts and I helped to make sure that things were clarified. I shared some of my point of view. I think you'll get value out of it.
If you were going to,
I just felt like I think the Fed I think they're going to be okay with some weakness in the economy. When Jerome Powell came out like super strong, and I think this was August or September of 2022, he basically said he wanted housing down, he wanted unemployment higher, and wanted to essentially hurt the economy to set the economy up for the next 10 to 15 year expansion in the economy. So I think like we're right on track unfortunately for what the Fed is wanting. So we'll see.
That was of course, I lived through that in a very real way. I had a manufacturing business, and actually, no, I think that would have been before manufacturing. What was I doing in those years? Anyway, but I lived through it, and I can tell you it's such a different environment that we have right now compared to what we were doing. No, I did have my manufacturing business. This is such a different deal, and I don't think the Fed will get the kinds of things that Jerome Powell was looking for. I think it's a soft landing. I don't think it's going to be horrible, but I do think that we will not be able to maintain hitting higher numbers in the third quarter and fourth quarter than we hit this year. So we will be under those numbers. And so that'll be a technical recession. But my first clue that we were going to have a recession was when every single pundit, every single analyst said we weren't.
Mm.
So,
There you go.
so then I had to start
It's
looking.
contrarian. Yeah.
I had to start looking because something wrong when everybody agrees.
Yeah.
Last
When everybody agrees, you need to be careful.
Everybody last year this time was saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to have a recession," and I'm like, "No, I don't see a recession. I can't see it at all. I never could." But this year, I think
So
I'm 50-50 though on that.
So I learned something over the last week that solves your conundrum about short versus long rates and
Oh,
the
good.
the yield curve inversion and why it's been so persistent. So Janet Yellen at the Treasury purposely has increased the supply of short-term bills and notes versus the longer term bonds. And I think that's kind of somewhat what the market generally has been wanting.
I see.
Um, so with the new issuance or reissuance, um, they basically flooded more supply with the shorter term notes versus the long. So that has shifted. So what they auction off or however that
Yeah,
works. I'm not
yeah,
a
yeah. It's auction. Yeah. Okay, so that's interesting. And so then I also saw some information last week provided by somebody on X that the the short bonds will start to reinvert or they'll start to shrink and go back to normal again when we actually start to get the Treasury, the Fed reducing the rates. So the Fed is also partially responsible for it. And he says this guy said it'll take 6 quarter point reductions before we get back to even. And also lots of reporting, I already knew this, that inversion, to the extent that it happens again, usually happens after the recession starts.
um you mean that the flattening out
The,
um
the
it gets
return,
there before the recession starts. Yeah, and that's actually one of the charts that I show with Meyer Thacker that he provided is you get the steepest inversion before the recession. So where the short is much higher than
right.
the long-term interest rate. And then there's a delay of like 15 to 18 months, and then the recession typically starts. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, we'll see what happens on all of that. But I will say that I think in everything that I just said, that doesn't change my continuing understanding that inflation is dead. It's over. And these last remaining items, hopefully, it's not just truflation. You can go beyond or behind the numbers of truflation. I know a lot about the real estate business because I've had so many clients in the real estate business. I've had to study it backwards, forwards, and inside
Mhm.
out. And there's no question in my mind that the rents are either flat or up 1% or whatever based on everything I'm seeing. Yes, private residential is shocking everybody this winter by staying up. So we got a little bit of inflation there, but it's not huge. And then
Mhm.
we know that the car repair and car insurance inflation, yes, it might take a while, but it's going away because it's part of the end of this boom bust that we just went through in terms of lack of availability of cars and the prices of cars going crazy. So all of those things, I don't think the food away from home inflation problem is going to be solved, although it may not continue up at this rate. So I know personally, I'm not going out to lunch as much. I can guarantee you right now. It's just too expensive.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So meanwhile, Marco Jogovic, BJEGOVIC, MB Jogovic says, now the real quicker, the 3-month annualized core CPI is only 1.4%, which is way below what the Fed wants and is the lowest since January of 2021. The 6-month annualized core CPI is only at 1.9%, still below where the Fed wants, and is the lowest since February of 2021. So the indexes were largely unchanged and long bonds in the early going pre-market back to 4%. So a nothing burger.
Yep. We'll see.
Well, did you find that other?
It's hard to kind of figure out what it all means, you
That's
know?
true. That's true. So many moving parts. That's what we have artificial intelligence for, large language models. We should be able to plug all this stuff in and we'll get all kinds of amazing results, right?
Yeah. My mind is being blown on a like almost daily basis, and maybe you know this because you're a gadget guy. But micro SDs, which are like this size, you know,
Yeah.
they're like this big. There's now a 2 terabyte micro SD, 2 terabytes of information. Like that's the same amount of information that you used to store on a SSD this
Yeah.
big, or a hard
Yeah.
drive this big, or a bunch of floppies. I mean, it would be a mountain of floppies. That just blows my mind that something that tiny can store that much information.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah. Well, listen, at the same time that you're bringing up your show coming up that people should watch, people should absolutely watch my show tomorrow with Brian Wong on Optimus. You should definitely watch
Ooh,
this.
okay.
Brian is going to change everything tomorrow with this show. I mean, yeah, Brian brings up stuff that nobody's talking about, that nobody's thinking about, and he's right on. And this guy's smart.
Hmm.
He's yeah, and so that's going to be on tomorrow at around the noon hour. Highly recommend people check that one out. And I guess I know where I'll be tomorrow sometime watching yours. So,
There
so
you go.
did you find that other thing that you had on your list
Oh
as well?
yeah, so Clive Chan from Tesla, he was on a talk at CVPR for Tesla and Tesla AI. He's left for Open AI. So you have another Tesla employee. So I asked the question, when Tesla puts someone on stage, does it make them a target for headhunters? And probably. And what can Tesla do to prevent this while still having events?
Yeah.
Um, Maybe you could put a spokesperson up to, you know, to talk engineering. I don't know how that works, but in his ex post, he says, since 2021, I've had the honor to train in the Tesla dojo under true masters of the Silicon Arts. Ooh.
Wow.
The
Yeah.
world is now shifting. All eyes on AGI. One team of people I've always looked up to blazes the widest trail.
Wow.
Excited to learn from the best at OpenAI.
Well, that'll be hey, listen, it happens in that world. It happens in every world, but it really
Yep.
happens in that particular world. Well, let's take a look and we'll see here that Tesla is down another full percent almost in the after hours at 225 at this point. Do you I know you do a little bit of technicals. Do you have a bottom that you're looking for at this point?
Maybe.
Oh man. Oh, that's cold.
Yeah, maybe some numbers to add,
Okay, you're not gonna give us your bottom, huh?
Yeah, I think there's people who buy every week, whenever they get new money, and I think that's I think that's a decent strategy. You don't have to think about it. It's unemotional, and it allows you to buy more shares when the price is lower and buy less shares when the price is higher if you're doing the same dollar amount
Right, right.
every week or whatever. But I think it's good to try and look for little sweet spots to have a scoop here and there.
Okay, all right. Like I said, you're not going to give us your bottom, huh? All right. So we've got the bonds right now unchanged on the 10-year. In fact, I think you could just call it unchanged for all the long bonds, even though there's a couple things up and down. But the shorts, to your point, the shorts are all up. So they continue to no, they'll no longer surprise me now though, since you've given me my education on why they're still continuing to invert. All right, let's see here.
The short bonds, yep.
The short bonds are
Mhm.
up, yes, even though the longs are flat. Oil up another $1.30, not surprising, although interesting. Is that okay? See, you can never figure this stuff out. The Brent is now down to only $4 difference, even though the Red Sea got hotter today. And it was up, it's been six. Ever since the Red Sea stuff started, it went up to a $6 differential between the Texas Intermediate and Brent, and right now it's down to 4. So that's fairly interesting. Now that
Mhm.
It might be the cold snap in the east that they're having right now. It's pretty bad. And we've got a cold snap coming down from Oregon that's going to completely wipe out Central California, apparently. We already had one person die in an avalanche in California. Figure that one out. Natural gas up a little bit, but natural gas has been so all over the place, but it's historically at low point. Gold, same range, 2036. The dollar, flat, no change really. And Bitcoin is pretty flat, actually, after all of the last couple of days. 46.2, but it was higher, and it was lower, and it was higher. Mm-hmm. Any thoughts? Will this, Kathy Wood is now predicting what, 1,500,000 for the Bitcoin?
Yeah, but she's got a new ETF coming out that has Bitcoin in it. So it's not surprising. One thing I'd like to point people's attention to is there's a video I kind of missed from SpaceX that came out January 8th. And it was quote tweeted by Glenn Shotwell with talking about 262 Falcon landings since inception for SpaceX, and 42 Dragon splashdowns. That's their capsule that delivers people or cargo up to the ISS and space. 42 splashdowns. That's pretty cool. I totally missed this video that she quote tweeted. 73-minute video. It's got Elon's update for SpaceX, and then what we're expecting is that about a week after Tesla reports their earnings, that Elon's going to do an update on Tesla, and maybe he'll highlight the awesome engineering and updates to the upgraded Model 3. Don't call it Highland.
All I'm hoping for in both the earnings call, I want, of course, the numbers to be better than you just said. Mm-hmm. But I also want Elon to be in a good mood. I want him to be in a rah-rah. Yeah. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, Wall Street doesn't like it when CEOs talk about challenges. Right. And Elon loves to talk about the challenges.
Right. Hey, listen, my audience doesn't even like me to talk about the negatives, but you know what? I gotta call it like I'm seeing it. And so that's what it is. By the way, the indices in the pre-market are all about flat. All three are pretty darn close to flat, slightly down, but really you could call it flat. Well, there you go. We've done it again. Somehow we've managed to, I don't know that we've accomplished anything, but we sure enjoyed talking to each other, I think.
Yep.
All right, Brad. So you want to follow Brad at rebellionaire.com. Spelling on that is as one would expect. No double R and no E. so Rebellionaire, one R, right? And no E.
There's an E at the very end, like a millionaire would have.
There is. So it is one R. So Rebellionaire with an E.com. Okay.
Yep.
All right, cool. They should follow you there, and they should follow you on your video channel and also your website.
Yep.
All right, good. And we'll look forward to seeing you co-hosting the good news. Did we have any good news tonight? What was our good news? There was
we might have failed. We need to try harder, be less wrong.
That's right. Okay. Thanks so much, Brad, for coming on. And hey, to all of you out there.
Hey, the upgrade of Model 3. I mean,
that's right. That's
it launched, and
that's right.
And we'll see how quickly Fremont gets it going, and already they've had to shift back the timeline on that. So
I saw that. Yeah.
The earliest you can get it now is February.
Right.
Even if you're in California.
Well, we'll hope that continues. I've told my crowd already, if I was in the market for a car, I would buy that car in a minute. That'd be an easy choice.
Yeah, for sure.
Nothing else I'd rather have right now than that car.
All right. Sorry to interrupt.
Not at all. But hey, to everybody in the listening audience, it's been great talking to you.